Hello, class. Today, I wanted to go through some very important aspects associated with our macroeconomic model. Remember, the key equation we are working with is GDP is equal to consumption plus gross domestic private investment plus government spending plus net exports, which means what's driving the GDP are all of those components. What if we were to dig into each of these components individually? Isn't that what we need to have a greater understanding of how the macroeconomy works? If we want to move GDP, we have to figure out ways to move the components. So what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to try to explain how these components work. It's not magic. We have to figure out the variables that drive the components in order to get the economy to a point of stability. So let's begin. I'm going to start with the largest component, which is consumption. Now think, you're consumers. What is the primary variable that drives how much you consume? What determines if you buy that cup of coffee at Starbucks versus buying a video game, buying a textbook, going to the movies? What drives our consumption? Now you might be saying, a lot of things affect my decision to consume, Casey. But let's think about it. I'm asking for the primary variable. Isn't it related to your affordability? The primary variable that drives consumption is your income. So it's represented on this screen as DI. What's DI? Disposable income. Think of it as your take home pay. You know, when you download your paycheck, there's a gross pay, and then there's the piece that went into your bank account, your net pay. Well, here we're going to refer to this as your disposable income, money that's available for you to buy your stuff. The primary variable of consumption is disposable income. And think about it. The more income you get, what do? You consume more. Disposable income goes up, consumption goes up. That's a direct relationship. Now think for a minute. When you get your income, you either consume it or save it. So your disposable income is split into savings and consumption. And that's the simple representation we have of this stage of your income. We either consume it or we save it. So consumption and savings is equal to the disposable income. And that's the relationship I want you to keep in the back of your mind. Now, this graph might look confusing, but it's just summarizing what we just said. A positive relationship between consumption and income. That's why we have the disposable income being measured here, the consumption being measured here, and a positive relationship between the two shows an upward sloping line. What about when your income increases? What happens to your savings? Income goes up, savings also goes up. So you're also going to have a positive relationship between income and saving. So both graphs are upward sloping. So the primary determinant of consumption is your disposable income. Consumption plus savings is equal to your income. Now this is probably making your eyes water. So hold on a minute. I am going to show you exactly how this example works. I'm going to break it down for you. So get a piece of paper, get a calculator, get a pen or pencil, and I'll wait for you to go get that because we're going to work through this example. I want you to see the steps of working through that example. So here's the disposable income column. 370. We'll make them small numbers. 390, 410, 430, 450, and 470. Here is the consumption column. And of course, they're matching. So at 370 disposable income, we're consuming 375 worth of stuff. At 390, we're consuming 390 worth of stuff. Okay? Now remember what I said earlier. When you get your income, you either consume it or you save it. Okay? So, the natural next step, if we have income and consumption, is to find savings. Get used to the symbols. DI, disposable income. C, you know as consumption. So let's get the S in there, savings. Now, work with me here. Pay attention. Get off of TikTok. Look for a minute. When your disposable income is 370 and you're consuming 375 worth of stuff. So remember what we said earlier. What's the relationship between these two? Your disposable income is your consumption plus your savings. So if you got 370 and you're consuming 375 worth of stuff, but clearly you're not saving because you're consuming more than the amount of money you have. So you're doing the opposite of saving. You're borrowing, or what's called dis-savings. The point is, this would be -5. It's like asking your friend for $5 so you could buy an expensive shirt that you can't afford or something. Okay? So, one other way to look at it is 375 plus a -5 would be 370. Let's go to the next one. Your income is 390 and you're consuming 390 worth of stuff. What are you saving? Nothing. Zero. You get it? Let's look at another. Your disposable income is 410. Now you're consuming 405. So how much are you saving? There we go. 5. We could keep going. 430 and 420. You're saving 10. And if we keep going, these numbers just happen to be set up real simple. Okay, so that's partially how this table works. Now there's some other key things I want to show you. Some other components of this that's very important. The first thing I want to show you is what's called, now watch me, average propensity to consume. So when we go back to the lecture, I'll show you what I mean. The average propensity to consume. That's just the share of your income that's consumed. But think of it. You have your income pie, that's all the money you have. What proportion, percentage of it is consumed? That's the APC. So think of it this way. If I am consuming 375 and my income is 390, my APC, the share of the pie that's consumed, is 375 divided by 370. Okay? The share of your income that's consumed. We'll just do two decimal places. 1.01. Look at this one. It's pretty simple. You're consuming 390, but your income is 390. How much of your income are you consuming? Well, 390 over 390, you're consuming all of it. Look at this one. You're consuming 405, but your income is 410. So how much of it are you consuming? We're not doing all of it anymore. But if you want to figure out the exact share, it's 405 out of the 410. Okay? You get it? And that's like 0.99. And if we keep going, you'll get some answers here. 0.98, 0.97, 0.96. I urge you to calculate these on your own. Okay? Here's another important measure I want you to get used to. So here's another one. Very important. It's called, watch me, the marginal propensity to consume. You might be going, how is that different from the first one? Well, I'll show you. So you have the average propensity to consume, the share of your income that's consumed. That one is called the marginal propensity to consume. Now, how is this different? Marginal in econ means change. So the marginal propensity to consume is looking specifically at when your income changes, by how much do you change your consumption. The way I like to look at it is, if somebody gives me an extra dollar, how much more do I consume? Now that I got extra money, how do I change my consumption? That's very different from the share of my income that's consumed. There's no change here. I get $100, I consume 90, my APC is 0.9. This one is saying, suppose I give you an extra $100. What do you do with it? How much more do you consume? Now here's where I want you to pay attention. How do we calculate this thing? Because now we're dealing with change. Watch me. This is what we do. Your income used to be 370. Remember, we're dealing with change. If you move to 390, you got 370, I know you're 390. What's the change in your income? 20 bucks. So in this example, the change is 20 for the income. Watch. You gotta put them together. Because you got $20 more when you move from here to here, look at how your consumption changed. That's the marginal piece. You used to be consuming 375. Now you're consuming 390. So what's the change? That's 15. So if you want the MPC, we're dealing with change. Because I got $20 more, my consumption changed by 15. So in this example, it's 15 upon the 20, which is 0.75. That's how you get MPC. Let's just do another for good measure. You used to be 410, now you're 430. I just skipped a couple, it doesn't matter. You can practice this on your own. So from here to here, your change in income, 20. How much did your consumption change? 15. It just so happens in this example, all the changes are the same, just to make it simple. But the point is, this is measuring the MPC, the change in your consumption before your income changes. This is very important in econ. Because if you want to get people to change their consumption, you got to change their income. How will they react? When we give people extra money, will they consume it? The MPC will tell us. Because if they don't consume it, We got to shift policy. When we give people extra money, will they save it? Think of the stimulus checks that are going out in COVID 19. They're sending out $1,200 more. And the idea is it needs to spur the economy, it needs to move consumption. But a key thing is when I give you $1,200 more, what will you do with it? How much of it will you consume? If we don't have this measure, we don't know what the hell we're doing. So when we study this and we get familiar with these options and these calculations and these propensities, is because they're going to be driving policy. So I want you to get them. Okay? So I'll slip this calculation in and then we will continue understanding how all of this works. Now that we did that example, here is the full table. If you need to take a picture with your phone, go ahead. The point is, I showed you some steps as to how all of this is calculated. So remember, the focus on consumption and savings gives us some very important measures. You remember I told you the average propensity to consume, and we calculated the marginal propensity to consume. Now, what I want to show you is just a summary of the formulas. The average propensity to consume, remember I said, it's the proportion of your income that's consumed. Now, here's another measure that we didn't really talk about, but it's pretty easy to get. It's called the average propensity to save. And this is now looking at the share of your income that's saved. So what's different? You get the entire income. What piece of it is saved is called the APS. And once you calculate your average propensity to consume, you have a nice, neat relationship between the two. When you get your income, if you don't consume it, you save it. So the APC and the APS, when put together, they have to be equal to 1. That's pretty important because once you get the APC, these two things put together, APC and APS, will be equal to 1. You got it? So once you get these numbers, you know what number do I add to it so that when I add column 4 and 5, they're equal to 1. That's the APC and the APS. Remember the MPC? The change in your consumption because your income changed? Well, we could do the same thing for what's called the marginal propensity to save. The savings or the change in your savings when there's a change in income. Again, nice neat relationship. The MPC and the MPS will be equal to 1. So once you get the MPC, you know your MPS. Because when you add them together, they will be equal to 1. These measures are important for macroeconomic policy. Understand the definitions, understand the numbers, because we're going to use them again a little bit later on. Follow up by looking at the lecture I have called The Multiplier. That almost sounds like a movie, like The Equalizer. Well, this is an important measure also called the multiplier. And I'm gonna very briefly show you in a separate video how this links to the MPC and the MPS. Okay? Take care. I hope this was useful and I will see you soon in Zoom World.